Welcome back to Alien Wisconsin. Recently, I took a vacation to Viroqua, a small rural town in Wisconsin with fewer than 5,000 people, a place where you'd think nothing much happens, or so I thought. While there, I casually asked around to see if anyone had any UFO stories to share. What I found was more than I had ever expected. Several people mentioned seeing UFOs, but only one brave woman agreed to sit down for a recorded interview. She shared the story of how her entire family encountered a UFO during a quiet country drive, and how that experience, along with talking about it, has completely changed her life. But before we dive into her incredible story, if you're a fan of amazing true stories, be sure to hit the like and subscribe. It really helps a small channel like this. And if you've got a story of your own, or a suggestion, drop it in the comments box below. I'd love to hear from you. Let's watch.
My name is Savelle, and I have lived 40 years of my life approximately in Viroqua. I loved growing up in Viroqua. At the time, though, it seemed boring and quiet because there wasn't anything here. But it was peaceful, it was safe, you had good friends. I am the oldest of 5, and you know what they say about the first is always the best. And I have 4 other siblings. So we always went on vacations, and we did a lot of day trips, and Dad loved taking back roads, getting us lost, and we called those boo-boo rides, and we had a lot of those rides. So he loved being adventurous and trying to see what he can see and learn something new. This was in 1976, so I would have been 16, so probably as a 16-year-old oblivious to anything unless it was a boy, probably. And there's little scenic tours and stuff, and we walked around, had a picnic, and then we headed home. And since my dad lived in Ferryville, he always likes roads by Ferryville. So we got to County B, and Dad decided to take that because regular roads are boring, regular highways. So he wants an adventure. So I was in the front seat because I was the special child, and Mom was in the passenger seat, resting her eyes, she says, which is code for sleeping. And my dad was driving. We were listening to country music, of course. And my other 4 siblings were in the back in various positions. Some were asleep. David was awake. And we were going down County B, nothing exciting, just looking around. As we got to the knoll of the hill, we got to the top, nothing exciting. And it wasn't much of a hill, it was just a little knoll. As we got there, in front of us was a UFO. And I'm like, what the heck? And I don't think Dad stopped. He was probably about 100 feet away. But it was there in front of us, about the width of the road. So I would think probably 20 feet wide. If I had to guess on a height, I don't know, 9 feet. And it was shaped, I've tried to draw it, kind of like this. It didn't have a spotlight coming from the bottom. There was no seams, there was no little weird things sticking out. It was just like that. There was 3 or 4 things on the side, which I originally thought were lights, but I believe it was backlit, so it was probably windows. So I thought there's windows, and it was kind of like a brushed silver or a pewter. It wasn't like glaringly bright, but it was silverish, and it was like skin. It's like there was a frame, not that you could see the frame, but it was just really smooth, and no weird little seams, no rivets, no nothing that looked like mechanical things moving on it, and it didn't make any sound whatsoever. It just hovered there. And again, none of us said anything. I don't think any of us moved. I don't know if Dad stopped the car. I have no clue. We were just all staring at the UFO. And then after a few seconds, it lifted up and went a little bit to the side. There was a tree on the right-hand side of the road, and it stayed there for a few seconds. And I wasn't really thinking about wondering anything. I was just watching it, trying to figure out what the heck was going on. And then it just took off, and not a straight line, it was just a little bit of a swerve It took off. It must have went about 10 miles in about 1.5 seconds. And as it left, well, you didn't see it in about a second and a half, but this light trail was still behind it. So, I mean, you know, the speed of light is really fast, but there was still a trail, which I thought was really weird. And then I remember thinking, oh my gosh, what did we just see? And I don't think we said anything in the car. David saw it, my mom saw it, my dad saw it, and I saw it. I think the other kids were asleep or something, because trips are boring sometimes. Yeah, when we saw the UFO, nobody said anything. I don't think we reacted. I mean, we just all sat there with our mouths open, watching it, and I really don't remember saying, I mean, no one made a noise. Nobody talked about it. I don't think even after the point, because it was so surreal. I mean, we know what we saw, but we felt kind of like, I don't know, not crazy, but stupid for even telling about it or talking about it, because people would think we were crazy. After we saw the UFO, it was just really conflicting in my mind. I knew what I saw, and I knew I'd never seen it before, and I couldn't explain it as anything else. I tried to logically try to figure out what it was besides a UFO, because UFOs made no logical sense to me, because they weren't supposed to be real. So a lot of conflict trying to figure out where to put this piece of information I had. And I guess just after that, I was always just looking for more pieces, because I knew what I saw. And 3 other people in the car saw the same thing. After the experience, I told a couple people about it. First, the general reaction I got was that I felt that they thought I was like not being a good Christian because I saw a UFO. Well, because they weren't real and I must be somehow demeaning God's work or the Bible, which I'm not. So it was really hard, but God created everything. So how could someone say because I saw a UFO, I'm being contradictory to the Bible? Because it could have very well obviously been God that created it, because he created everything. But yeah, it was kind of downplayed, like I was making it up or something, because they didn't like how it fit into Christianity. We have 9 children. We have a full house. My children, my 2 daughters, grew up being told about the UFO story and hearing stories from my grandfather, because he has also seen UFOs. And so they heard about it. And I think they were, sort of believed it. They didn't tell me I was BSing. My adopted children have mixed reviews. Some think that, I don't know, that I was BS. And others believe it and realize it's very possible. My dad passed away in 2020, and a few months before he died, we knew he was getting to end of life. I started doing lots of videos asking about his favorite pet and asking about storms and whatever else you could think of, first girlfriends, just so we could put it online so the family could look at it and have good memories. And I asked him about what he remembered about seeing. I said something happened in the summer once and we saw something, and he perked up and he goes, that was 1976 and we saw a UFO. And he just was so excited and animated to tell this story. And my dad knows what he saw, and he talked to other people that in the area that saw it, and he just really loves sharing that story because it was a really exciting time in his life. So it was just nice to have it online with the other videos to see my dad's reaction to other events that happened in his life. So Dad, back when we were kids, I think it was like, I don't know, probably 12 or 13. We were coming home one day.
It was a 76.
Okay, I was 16 then. More than I remembered.
So what did we see? No one believes my version. I told them your version of what we saw was even more detailed than mine.
We were going up Highway B outside of Prairieville, heading up the road. And it was in the mid to late afternoon. And pulled up over a rise in the road, and there was a flying saucer right above the road, just sitting there.
So what were the details that you remember, what we saw?
We were sitting there, and I could see windows in it. I was that close. I could see some round windows in it. I couldn't see nothing through the windows. But I paid real close attention because I wanted to remember it.
Mm-hmm.
And there was windows in it. And then all of a sudden it took off, didn't make any noise, didn't make any sound, nothing like that. It just took off quiet. And flew out of the valley, and it had been going, a couple thousand miles an hour. It was going so fast, it just a blur. Well, once it got going, all of us is a blur anymore. You couldn't see it. Just a blur heading across the sky. And
yeah, but see, what I remember when I tell the kids, is I remember it was sitting above the road. See if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Sitting above the road. And then as we saw it, I thought I remembered it picking up it a little bit.
it may have.
And then when it disappeared, I kind of thought it kind of made like a little, not a zigzag, but a little bit of a S pattern as it just took. I mean, it was there and then it just took off, and it was gone in 1.5 seconds.
Oh, real fast.
Yeah, it was just gone. Well, we couldn't, we saw, I mean, it went.
If you didn't know it was there, you wouldn't know it because you couldn't see it once it got going.
No.
You couldn't
Yeah.
see it anymore because it moved so fast.
Yep.
It was a blur.
Yeah, it just disappeared over the horizon, which would have been, what, 10 miles or something?
Toward Rush Creek. I suppose we could see there I suppose we could see 10 miles in there.
Yeah, I would think so.
Cover that 10 miles actually in a second.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. But
It's real fast.
When the Savelle family spotted the UFO on County Highway B, they watched it zoom towards the Rush Creek Natural Area, covering a distance of 10.25 miles. According to Lauren's memory, it made the trip in just 1 second. In Anne's version, it took 1.5 seconds. If it took just 1 second, the UFO was traveling at a mind-blowing 48 times the speed of sound. Even at 1.5 seconds, that's still an incredible 32 times the speed of sound. To put that in perspective, the fastest rocket-powered aircraft ever flown by humans can only reach 7 times the speed of sound. And at those speeds, the blast from a rocket engine would have vaporized the Savelle's family car, and yet they were completely unharmed. That's just one more reason why the UFO sighting leaves us with more questions than answers. Encouraged by the positive response to sharing her father's videos on social media, Anne decided to go public with her family's story. This led her to connect with renowned UFO researcher and author John Syme.
John Syme did the interview with the Viroqua Library, and he and I connected, and we did a story about the UFOs in the Kickapoo, and he told my story, or my family's story, in the book. And that was really interesting to read some of the book and look at some of the stories. And it's really awesome to know that other people have come forward with their stories that people have been ashamed to tell. And it was really reaffirming that this is an actual thing that's happening, and that we can come together and continue to look for the truth instead of hiding it because we don't understand it, or because we're afraid of it, or someone tells us we must be wrong because it's not biblical. None of it's true. We need to find the truth.
That wraps up another episode of Alien Wisconsin. I wanted to thank the Savelle family for letting me share their otherworldly story. Every courageous person who comes forward and shares their experience emboldens others to do the same. Who knew Wisconsin was this interesting? If you have a story to share, please reach out to me in the comments section, I would love to have you on Alien Wisconsin.